Welcome to a new series by Enforcer, The Wonders of M365 Business Premium. We're going to talk about what Business Premium is, how it can help your business, how it can help your customers, what does it offer, how to have the commercial chat with customers who are thinking of uplifting. Hopefully you're convincing them to do that. And then ultimately, when you've done that, how does it make you stand out from your competitors? But before we get into that, who am I and why should you care? My name's Lewis, I work for Enforcer. Hopefully you've figured that out by the jumper I'm wearing and you're on our YouTube channel. I'm a Microsoft MVP in the Intune category, although arguably I'm a Business Premium MVP, but they don't have a category for that yet. You can find me on LinkedIn and I've got a blog site. And I also like to go to community stuff and events. So MMS is a great conference in the US, Mem Summit Paris, Workplace Ninjas, wherever they are close to you, and Experts Live UK are all things that you can go to expand your knowledge. Here's a fun picture from me, or of me at Workplace Ninjas Summit, as I've spelt there, in 2025. Not sure why my hand was up. I wasn't one asking questions, but strange things can happen. Let's kick off straight away with Business Basic and Business Standard. These are core staple offerings we generally see in MSP. Business Basic gets you in the door. It gets me my email, gets me my web apps and my cloud storage. And then typically you would buy Business Standard to upgrade if you needed the desktop apps. Very common to see that. What this doesn't give me is really any proper tenant protection or security offering. An MSP might layer those offerings with third-party email, anti-spam, endpoint protection, and other tools. What Business Premium sets out to do is consolidate those needs into one license. So we've got Intune for my devices, Defender to protect devices, Entra ID for my identity, and then Purview to protect data leaking. Deliberately, I've put Purview last or said it last because it should be done last. I'd argue that if you've got strong Purview but weak everything else, you've probably got weak Purview as a result. We'll talk about that as the series goes on. Security is top of mind for SMB customers. I'd argue that it's top of mind for everyone these days. Working in IT, we've all accidentally become security people, whether we like it or not. It used to be that you could deploy a laptop, do the customer configurations that you needed or customizations like desktop background, installing their apps, and that was it. Now that role has moved into security. So there's an expectation that as an MSP customer or as an MSP to my customers, if they get breached, we are the first ones to help pick up the pieces. We're the ones that are trying to stop them getting breached with good tenant control. Typically, as those types of businesses scale, they will find ways of justifying investment in security, but largely I would say SMB is underinvested and overexploited, and Business Premium can help you do that at a reasonable cost all in one stack. Microsoft also weigh in on this effort by releasing these digital defense reports. They do this once a year, and in this one what it's saying is that more than 99% of identity attacks are password attacks, so you need MFA, but 1% of those attacks are more complex. So you've got AITM, which you see quite a lot these days, attacker in the middle, adversary in the middle. You've got MFA, but it's not enough. And in 2025, that was actually the number one takeaway, is that you need phish-resistant MFA, which is becoming the gold standard for security. You cannot properly do that with Business Standard or Business Basic. You do not have full control of the identity. That is, who can access things and how do they do it, from what device, from which location, under which conditions. Hence, conditional access in Entra ID P1 as part of Business Premium. Another useful slide from that deck is the hierarchy of cybersecurity needs. If you don't know where to start, you can start here. Let's protect identities first. That's going to be the theme throughout this intro to Business Premium. If you've done that, you're preventing most business breaches. Then you can move on to all the other stuff. To look at that through a Microsoft security lens, this is what that looks like. And you might notice as well that it's out with Contoso and in with Zava. You can Google that change as well to see why they did that. But here we are again. Entra is our foundation, then we move up towards Copilot, which is what all of our customers are asking for. If you prefer that information in a horizontal format, then this slide is for you. From left, Entra, right to Purview. Intune itself is a security product. It's a preventative security product as well as the thing that can manage your cloud endpoints. Cloud endpoint or cloud managed endpoint. So your Windows devices, your macOS devices that you use for work purposes, they get enrolled to Intune. They've got all my configs on them. Defend for Business, deployable from Intune. Very seamless, very easy to do. We'll explore that as we go. Now, you might be looking at this and you say, I don't want to put all my security eggs in one basket. And it's a phrase I hear quite a lot. I would say that we need to change the thinking there and look at how attacks actually happen. It's very often not the result of the product that was used, but how the product was configured. If I'm at an MSP and I've got 10 products to manage, that to me presents a bigger risk to the customer than having one suite configured really, really well, where the whole timeline of an incident is in one place for me to manage. You could call it a single point of failure, but I believe that's preventable if the config is good enough. This is also referred to as best of breed versus best of suite. Yes, I could go out and buy best in class for everything and try and piece that together, and lots of companies do. In my mind, that makes it hard to employ people who need to know all these different tools, know how they work, know how to remediate an incident based on factoring in all these different moving parts. Best of suite, as I kind of figured out a few years ago, when configured properly, will prevent more breaches. A normal attack timeline might look like this. It's referred to as left of boom and right of boom. When the boom happens, that's the bad thing. A lot of the cybersecurity market will market tools and solutions that happen on the middle or the right of this scale. Left of boom is really where the cool kids are. We're the ones that are stopping the attacks in the first place. So we're not letting anyone get out of our MFA policies. We're not allowing port 3389 on a critical server be open to the world. There's all sorts of things I can do left of boom to prevent the boom. If you prefer that in meme format, you can buy Business Premium and take the easy path, or you can buy 5 other tools and have constant friction with trying to learn all those different tools, all the updates, and configure them all well. I don't think I've ever done a single review of a business or a tenant or an organization where more tools meant better security. And then just to follow on from that, if an incident does occur and you've got a different vendor for email, endpoint, and then identity, or in the other way around, time is pretty crucial when you're being breached. Having it all in one place makes it easier to take action on impacted assets without having to necessarily go through different teams. I've talked about identity quite a lot so far, but let's bring in another meme. Identity is the new security perimeter. It always has been. Whether it was on premises or whether you're going to the cloud, identity is the most important aspect in cybersecurity today. You might say, well, I have security defaults. Security defaults, you are allowing Microsoft to make the decision on what is logging into the tenant. And sometimes it doesn't get it right. You can find evidence of this on Reddit. Look on the MSP subreddit. You can see examples where people thought they were safe with security defaults, but actually Microsoft was allowing a new laptop in a new location with an impacted user account. Ideally, you need to move towards turning security defaults off and implementing your recommended or best practice, or however you want to call it, your conditional access controls. Best practice for your business. So that is, I'm controlling who logs in from where under what conditions. Looking at Defender for Business, I can confidently say this year and even 2025, Defender for Business is great. Defender for Endpoint is great. It's moved on a long way. And if we look at the timeline, see, had I had recorded this last year, 10-year timeline was quite a nice title. 11 years is not so nice. But anyway, in 2015, Defender launched with Windows 10. At that point, if you said in a tender or a contract, we're using Microsoft antivirus, you may not have won that tender. Let's just be honest. In 2017, Defender ATP launched, so that's Advanced Threat Protection. In 2020, that got renamed to Defender for Endpoint. Microsoft never renamed things. And then Plan 1 and Plan 2 was created. In 2022, some commercial SKU changes were happening, so they added Defender for Endpoint P1 to M365 E3, and Defender for Business launched. And then things got really exciting when they added that to Business Premium. And at that point, it made complete sense in my mind that Business Premium is the go-to starting point. I've got my identity, I've got my endpoint protection, and I've got Defender for Office. If I do it all really well, where are the gaps? And 2026 and beyond, this is where we are now. If we look at some other stats around Defender for Endpoint, it's not just them doing stuff internally that's made a difference and an impact. Other people notice as well. So in the Gartner Magic Quadrant, Microsoft named a leader 6 consecutive times. MITRE ATT&CK, 100% threat protection in 2024, and you can see they've been kind of like layered with awards ever since. If we look at the Magic Quadrant, Microsoft are up there with CrowdStrike, seems to go tit for tat year on year as to who wins that. At that point, I would say it is good enough. What I sometimes see are MSPs and companies out there who will have the capability to use Defender for Business or Endpoint, but still buy, in addition, one of the other products that's not as high up as Microsoft are on this graph. At that point, I'd really consider looking at Defender for Endpoint. It's very, very good. And it's in Business Premium, the subject of this talk. It supports your popular operating systems. One license gives you 5 activations across devices for that user. Really easy, really integrated. The learning curve is slightly different from a lot of other products, but once you get your head over that, it's quite easy to get on with. Device management and security, and of course I am talking about Microsoft Intune. This used to be the way that devices were configured. They would be imaged either using old tools like Norton Ghost, Symantec, or MDT. And your network diagram may have looked a bit like this. So there's stuff scattered everywhere, lots of on-premises stuff, needing a VPN, relying quite heavily on stuff that's in an office. With Intune, we have now the cloud-native endpoint. What that doesn't mean is that we have to remove Active Directory to use Intune. So it's perfectly adequate and accepted to keep Active Directory for your identity and your line of business apps while you still need it, but shift the management of the endpoint to Intune. And there's something that we're going to cover in this series that will talk about how that's achieved using something called Cloud Kerberos Trust. So in Active Directory, I've made my user, but the machine itself is managed by Intune and protected by Defender. And I don't mean just managed by Intune. I don't mean that the device is just in a portal and I can see it. I'm doing all my left of boom preventative configs in Intune. So like disabling SMBv1, enabling BitLocker, managing my browsers, implementing browser extension allow listing, using auto patch to keep it up to date, all those sorts of things. We need to be seeing Intune as a security product, because that's by the nature of what you're doing to the endpoint, that's what it is. And then once we've got Intune to a good point, we can use autopilot, where me as the MSP, I would ingest the hashes for the new device or use autopilot device prep, ship the device to the employee unboxes that device and it does all the setup on its own. Again, you're saving time, increasing efficiency. Let's look at email protection too. Again, part of Business Premium. Who knew that Defender for Office had all this stuff going on in the background? Again, it does require some configuration. We're going to run through that, but namely in Defender for Office 365 P1 with Business Premium, you get safe attachments and safe links. a lot of the core email protection offerings and capabilities are not even part of Business Premium. They're just part of doing Exchange Online protection really, really well. And we'll cover all that. If we look at safe links, when a link is sent by email or by Teams, the link gets clicked. Without safe links, the content is displayed. With safe links, the URL is checked against Microsoft Global Threat Intel, and if it's good, it's allowed. If it's bad, it gets blocked. Safe attachments, there's a lot more going on behind the scenes. Email comes in, it's detonated by Microsoft, so it's spun up in a VM, the behavior is analyzed, a decision is made. Without safe attachments, the content arrives in the inbox, and then it's on. The next step is on the endpoint protection or the prevention config done through Intune as to what happens next. Why leave it to that when we can layer it up with all the stuff that's in Business Premium? That brings me on to consolidation. You can, for the next few years, consolidate IT spend and increase your security with Business Premium and Defender for Business. So, as I said, you can have lots of different third-party tools, but if they're not configured correctly, they're not really presenting much value to the customers or for you as an MSP. If you focus on the Microsoft stack and get really good at it, you can have just as much security and reduce vendors, make training easier, make the whole internal effort easier. The upsell then is to the customer that you tell them about that, and it's all brilliant. You can bring them all into one nicely managed feature set. And then for your existing Business Premium customers, the focus then is just demonstrating value year on year and renewing those customers. This conversation might be easier with what's coming up in July 2026. So what we're looking at here, there are new things coming to Business Basic, Standard and Premium. I would say most of you are going to be interested in the 50 gig email storage that's coming to all SKUs. But crucially, the prices are changing, but not of Business Premium. So the gap between Standard, Basic and Premium is becoming smaller. Might be a good time to start talking to your customers about this and how you can start to consolidate. We'll cover that as we go through. Once we understand all the products that are available to us, we can start to look at how an MSP might implement these things. Staying consistent, we start with Entra. Move through the products from 1 to 5, and then we can start to explore the other add-ons. Intune Suite can cover third-party app management and remote control, but I understand that MSPs generally have other tools that do this outside of Microsoft that are better suited to multi-tenant scenarios. The other paid add-ons, Copilot, I don't need to explain what that is, and then E5 Security, or more recently Defender Suite for Business Premium and Purview Suite for Business Premium. The higher maturity initiatives are things like Purview and WDAC for application control. So buckle up. There's going to be new videos coming out on this to help you configure this, and then hopefully you'll want to at some point use Enforcer to help you manage that at scale across all of your tenants.